What time is it there, Jim?
11.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I've got my radio breakfast voice on. Hey, welcome. No, for the traffic, Steve. How's it going?
Welcome to Radio
Hampford
Jim.
West.
You could do
My coffee.
The coffee. Oh, you've got a coffee.
How's life
I could
in
do
Sydney?
Sponsored by Kmart.
You were not allowed to do branding.
What's the news in Sydney? Give us something interesting.
Well, we're all looking at the stock market prices at the moment and panicking like crazy.
You're all still in lockdown, aren't you? Did no one tell you the pandemic finished 5 years ago?
No, that's the way we like it.
Jim, COVID's over.
Cruise ships. What?
Nothing changed anyway.
It's over. It's finished.
No, I don't want it to be over. Please, no.
Yeah.
I like COVID.
Make a start. Let's make a
Yeah,
start.
I'll start. Well, Steve's got no technical errors today. The reason I haven't
I'm
started, because
prepared.
normally as I'm about to start, Steve walks off to sort out his microphone or something.
I've been here all week waiting.
He hasn't moved.
I've been here since 4 o'clock in the morning.
Starving. Haven't eaten.
4 o'clock in the morning. It was dark when I got out here.
There's a smell.
Started this.
How you doing, Jim? How's life?
I'm well. How are you, mate? It's good. Yeah, it's good to see
I'm
you
all
both.
right. Yeah, it's been a while since we had a chat.
That's good. It has been. Well, life's been busy, you know.
We're going to have a...
What are we talking about?
We're going to have a...
Jim, what we're going to talk about today
Well,
then? Come on.
I thought, given that we had Jim Hayden on the line, it would be appropriate for us to have a 40-minute chat about being a keyboard player, which I think some
40
people
minutes.
might go, oh, I'm going to leave now. Don't do that,
Yeah.
because this is a
No, that's
belter.
right.
Yeah.
Can I tell you, I've been hanging for this moment for 20 plus years. No, more than
So
that.
have all the other keyboard
Since
players.
1998.
Jim,
Yeah.
Jim's been, when's
Yeah.
it going to be me? When's it going to be me? When's it
No
gonna
one
be
ever,
me?
like, what keyboard never came and interviewed me once?
Really?
Actually, did what guitar ever come and interview you, Steve?
Guitarist magazine did, yeah.
Oh, see?
But that
See?
was because like it was probably just because it was Mick Taylor, you know, having grown up with Mick Taylor, and it's like,
Right,
and he's the
Well-
editor of Guitarist magazine, so
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jim,
No,
just
nothing.
give me your point
Yeah.
of view on this, because all jokes aside, this is pretty funny. Are keyboard players generally the person in the band that's like forgotten about?
Did you say the smartest people in the band? I didn't. Sorry, the line went bad then.
The smartest people in the band that no one ever thinks about.
Actually, you
Yeah.
did always wear a shirt,
don't
didn't
know.
you? A lot of the gigs.
I
You had
did.
some-
Well, it's just to try and get noticed. It was a shiny green one. If you watch the video of, was it Bedminster Town Hall?
Bryanston.
No, the school, Bryanston. Yeah,
Bryanston. Yeah,
that was my
yeah.
trademark Sunnies. And that was a Paul Smith shirt. I remember going and buying that with Sim.
In London.
We watched it the other day, and it's anything desperate to try and be noticed in that dark corner right at the back, especially in those days, because I had half the stage sitting around
Well,
me in terms
That
of
gig
gear.
was before we were signed, so it's before we'd met Robin. Was Dave and Harry were involved? That must have been very early on, like
Yeah.
management. So that was basically that gig was
Well, I had the
kind of
Hammond,
like
I had
we were
the
doing
Rhodes.
live. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And so it
it was
was
awesome.
the more livey band thing that
Yeah.
Beautiful Insane sort of wasn't in
Yeah.
many ways.
Yeah. I love the version of Today's the Day on that, actually.
Yeah, right. I haven't actually
Particularly
listened to
your
it all the
wow
way through.
guitar. Anyway, so what did you ask
Well,
me?
so, no, this is good. This is what
It's distraction. See, it's distraction
No,
because I'm very uncomfortable.
this is why
admitting
we're here.
publicly
This
that
is why we're here.
everybody ignores the keyboard player until the piano solo Morning Afterglow.
But this is why we're here.
And then people go,
There's this kind of,
Steve, what are you
I think
doing?"
there's this misconception sometimes that the keyboard player like fills in a bit afterwards or something like that. But really and truly, I think we've got to spend 30 minutes bigging up the keyboard players, because there's some
All right.
famous keyboard
Yeah.
players out
Well,
there. And they never get interviewed.
I remember meeting you for the first time, not physically, because I still have to look forward to that pleasure. And the rest of the band tell me it's all right. But you saying like you walked past, it was probably Small World or something like that, and you remember hearing
Yes.
the Hammond player. Well, that's because they wouldn't let me be in the same room as everybody else, and I was actually outside. I inherited a set of demos
Rainy.
with Hammond and stuff on. And Rainy, that's it. I don't know if they take it for granted because they never see it. And a lot of the time they probably don't see it, unless it's Elton John. I was thinking about this at 4 o'clock this morning. You know, it's singer. Everyone knows the keyboard player who sings, like Elton John, you know. and add to that list. I mean, we all have Ben Folds, right?
Yeah.
He
Great
did it.
shout.
He rocked out at the front. But and Ray Charles, they were all singers, if you think about it. And I've only just started
Stevie
singing.
Wonder.
Stevie Wonder.
Chris Martin
Yeah.
from Coldplay.
Yeah, see, but I would never put
Plays
you. I
acoustic as
saw
well,
your
doesn't
list. I wouldn't put him as I wouldn't list him as a keyboard player. I wouldn't go. I'm gonna, Elton John developed a style which I think we all kind of slipped into, as did Billy Joel. Was Chris Martin's your pop kind of songwriter? I mean, everyone loves clocks, don't they? But
Pardon?
Brilliant track.
anyway, brilliant track. But yeah,
Yeah.
keyboard players were there to. Yeah, I think filling in the noise, filling in the gap is probably one way to say it. Unless you get to a band like Electrasy, when I think no, Steve and I were sharing the front there in terms of adding textures and lines and stuff that I don't think many of the other bands did. I mean, we were like the Charlatans were big, right? Like the Hammond was actually going through a really big revival. You had Cooler Shaker, the Charlatans,
Well, you think like the one and only.
Yeah.
Is it that? Is
I
that the
am
title of the
the
song?
da-da-da.
That
Yeah.
was that was like that was 80s, wasn't it? That was like 89 or something, was it? 88, 89. Yeah, so like big Hammondy,
Yeah.
like you remove the Hammond from those songs and it's like
Yeah. There's
nothing,
nothing left.
Yeah, who knows
No.
who knows the people that have played
Yeah.
apart from like, big fans of the bands, like,
Yeah.
and
And
that
I
have
grew up
learned.
listening. Those bands were my idols. Like Paul dragged me kicking and screaming from a life that I'd invented for myself. Or it was a path I didn't invent it. I'd gone to uni. I was doing a lot of jazz, funk stuff up in Cambridge and teaching and doing musical director shows and all that. Because keyboard players do that, right? We're kind of the musical whore of the ensemble because, I saw a cartoon the other day of the two guys sitting on a coach and there's a bass player dreaming about music and he's just seen the letter C, like the note C, dong, and there's a keyboard player and he's looking happy and the keyboard player's sitting on the opposite side of the bus looking all kind of frowny and thinking deeply because he sees C sharp -9, sharp 11, 13 added, blah, 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 blah. We're musical whores. We've grown up, probably doing more. I'd done every style of music known to man before Electrasy.
Do you understand this,
Yeah.
Pete?
It's
You
honestly,
probably understand it
It's
more than
just
I do.
And so I gave it all up to join a band and play three chords. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I'd always wanted to do. I had to reteach myself how to play when I joined Electricity. Seriously, I had to chuck a lot of noise out of my head and get back to going to creating organically something brand new from the ground up. And that's what I'd always dreamt of being. I'd always dreamt of. But Paul said to me one night up in Cambridge, he goes, "What the fuck are you doing with your life? You always wanted to be the best keyboard player in the world." And my keyboard players in the world were Don Airey, Rick Wakeman, all the classic Keith Emerson, who all sat there with, like 16 acres worth of equipment around them in a pit with a cape on. And that's what I wanted to do. And that's why I joined the band. And I heard the songs. Eventually, when I got to hear the songs, I went, shit, there's a space there for me. There's these guys are already writing songs. You've got to work with a great songwriter. Nigel's a great songwriter. It's not three chords. It's a lot more than that going on. There's a lot of texture to play with. So that's what we love, us keyboard players.
So
Symphonic.
Did you struggle with the amount of chords? Mind you, so you said you went to like 3 chord sort of stuff because that was sort of.
I was being facetious, but.
Oh, were you? Right, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Right, okay.
Sorry.
So you didn't have a problem.
I'm just, my brain started waking up now. Yours are both going to sleep, but it's the beginning of the day. The sun's out. I've got the cat next to me.
let me just interject, right? I want to be really self-indulgent just for a couple of seconds and tell the story about
here we go.
Yeah.
My sort of introduction, my proper introduction to the Electrasy Hammond sound, because I think it's really important. I'd seen Electrasy down at Verdi's. It was a right old racket. We had a good old time. It's the first time I'd seen the band live. And you were probably Vivid or something at some point as well. It probably wasn't even Electrasy in name.
It was an over 18s club and you were, what, 13?
Probably something like that. And then a couple of weeks later, a friend of mine, Darren, his mum ran Rainbow Video in Yeovil, right? Which is this VHS video shop, like
Yeah.
rental shop.
Know it well. We
Yep.
used to like hire vid, like Gremlins
Yeah,
and
all of that.
from
It's
there.
massive.
Yeah.
And Small World Studios was above Rainbow Video. And
I remember Rainbow
yeah,
Video too. Yeah.
we'd gone down to Rainbow to rent some videos. He'd gone in. I was sitting in his little gold Metro, and then I heard this Hammond, which I now know is a Hammond, but I didn't know back then. I heard this keyboard sound coming from Small World, and I went, holy shit, that's the sound I heard in Weymouth. Boom, like it was just mega. And that was you guys rehearsing at Small World, and obviously Jim playing the Hammond, which you then subsequently, all these years later, explained to me was connected to a Leslie, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
It was the most
You're doing well.
insane sound for a music
Yeah.
lover to hear, like boom, like it was wicked. And that was it. And that was
Yeah.
like my second moment of hearing Electrasy's sound. And then all those years later, it just became quite kind of a part of the sound and all that kind of stuff. Just so take me back to this moment. 2 questions. How difficult was it to get a Hammond and a Leslie into Small World Studios?
Nightmare.
Explain to everybody what a Leslie is, how big it is, and Small World.
Right. Okay. Well, here's the history lesson.
It's not
folks,
just
on
the Leslie,
development.
was it? It was the Hammond
No,
itself.
the organ
as
itself.
well.
Like that Leslie wasn't too bad to handle because it was just like a big box.
It wasn't as
But
heavy.
the Hammond was really heavy. I think they would probably weigh, I don't know, 200 kilograms, probably a bit more than that. And you need
Could be.
4 people to move one really safely. But the trouble with Small World is you couldn't get 4 people either side of the staircase because the staircase was like that. And I remember loading in.
Wooden
Actually,
as well. Yeah.
I remember doing.
Creaking.
Way before any of this, I did my first tour was with a band called Skin, who was signed to EMI. They'd recorded their album. They were touring. We did clubs around the UK. I was stood at uni. I bought spray-on jeans to be cool because they were a glam band. And I think Don Airy had actually recorded their parts, and he got me in to do the tour because he's like, no way am I going on tour. And I wasn't on stage, I was off stage. And they had this tour manager called Johnny Allen, and we played the Stairway Club in Birkenhead, and it's called the Stairway Club because you had to go up 8 flights of stairs to get to the band room, which is right on the top. And so he turned up to me at the gig. I wasn't carrying the gear. He said, Jesus Christ, you better be good. I said, why? He goes, we've just had to carry a Hammond organ, which is 4 blokes. Because it's a physical thing. The Hammond is a physical thing. It's like Steve will get the engineering here. It's not supposed to work. It's like the bumblebee. It shouldn't work. It's a freak of engineering. So it's got all these mechanical discs that spin around in electromagnetic current, which causes the waveform, and that's how the sound goes. And it's all controlled then by valves and capacitors and all this old, physical stuff. And the case itself is like made of solid oak or something. It's like they're designed to be in a church and not moved
because they've got speakers built in underneath.
Well, there's some of them do. We took them out.
Didn't it?
Yeah, we took them out. Mine was small.
Okay.
I've got a small organ.
Hey,
yeah.
There
are some people out there that've got much bigger organs than me.
I can remember your Hammond though. There was you might remember it, where we were at Bristol Uni, and awesome gig. But to get it in there, it's like we had to get it in the lift, and it was basically we had to tilt it like vertically,
on its end.
Slide it in on its end.
Doesn't do
no
any
room
good,
for
actually.
a person to get in.
It was amazing that it worked.
There was no more. It literally
sure
it fitted in the lift, and then someone had to press the button, wait for the doors to close. Someone waiting at the other end of the lift to like open the doors. And there's just a Hammond there.
Poor AD, Chris and Reg just would have broken their backs and cursed them because they're just big physical lumps.
I did a little bit of digging around for the origins of Hammond organ. I thought, because I'm a nerd and I like that. Lauren Hammond's 1934. It was created as an affordable alternative to pipe organs.
That's right.
And then what was really interesting is there were all these there were all these like early case studies of people going, it was a complete fluke. They created this sound. The sound was so good, no one wanted to play the pipe organ in the church anymore. They wanted to play on the Hammond because of the kind of tone wheel technology and the spinning wheels and all that kind of stuff. And then it was.
But that's where you got all the gospel. That's where you got all the gospel
exactly.
stuff came from. Look, to be honest with you, though, going back seriously to your question, the combination of the organ and the Leslie is really the combination that was important. because actually you go back to that video, you can see the Leslie cabinet behind my head with the back taken off, because the reason you get, and everyone describes it as swirly whirly, we do anyway, is because their physical speakers actually spin
Yeah.
around, so the sound gets thrown around. So you put it in the corner of a room, and you do feel movement because the sound is literally bouncing off the walls, and that's been very hard. That's probably I can live with the simulators now, but it's very hard to live without a Leslie on stage. It's
so distinctive.
It doesn't feel the same.
And
Yeah, it
and,
doesn't
it,
feel
and
the
it's
same.
also because it's like stereo, but I always felt like, especially in like a small world where you've got a great, like quite a dead room, and it would basically, it would feel like it wasn't just going from this ear and you could hear it going from ear. It would like pass through your head.
Yeah,
you know, through and around inside. It's like insane. Like
I listened to
feeling.
Brilliant.
I listened to. I mean, like but the thing that we did in the early days as well, you got to remember. I mean, we did the Today's the Days of the world, right? Where we did the traditional rock out Hammond. And mind you, that Fender Rhodes was pretty insane as well, Steve. Do you remember that
did
fuzz
you have
bar?
that? Oh, you had a Marshall.
Yeah.
You had a
And I had a
Marshall
4x12.
Yeah.
The Rhodes was going through a fuzz wire, and you couldn't play more than one note on it because it was so distorted. But we didn't have a second guitar. We didn't it was just you and me. But
then it was like you couldn't really distinguish what was guitar and what was Rhodes or Hammond at some point, because it was like we'd be in similar frequencies, and they would sort of merge between each other, and it'd be like, what is going on?
That's why when we record now, Pete, Steve and I will be the ones that arc up probably at any point in time, because Steve and I were used to holding that space in the middle of noise generation. And it got bleepy, and then we got synths, and it got bleepy and bleepy. And then I remember Alex was talking about Paul, and because Paul was so incredibly tight, we were able to play live to click stuff, and so we did so much more. But we had another sound. Like if you listen to, I sat in the car the other day, and I think I just listened to the podcast with Alex, and something triggered my memory, and I said to Siri, "Hey Siri, play Angel," and it played the version on
Robbie
the
Williams.
album that. Yeah, and I went, "That's not right." I'm going to go. I'm going to.
Elastica.
No,
Siri,
the Mark
Electrasy.
The Mark 1 version. The Mark 1 version is fucking awesome.
I've got to go and grab a.
Where are you going?
Drink.
He's off.
Back in a sec.
I knew he was going to do this.
See, this is what happens.
Sorry.
I know. I start talking about me, and you just go, "All right, I'm going."
Won't be long.
But that version is
over
probably
there.
one of my proudest musical moments. That organ parts, that whole version of Angel, I just go, sublime. And then you hear the Hammond in a different way. It was like, it wasn't big. It was like, it's wine.
Was that with the Lee as well?
Yeah.
So good.
That's a Hammond.
So good. Did you guys take the Leslie to many live shows?
Everyone. Right. Before we recorded Beautiful Insane, and then when we recorded Beautiful Insane, we had to be more mobile, and I got to play with an awful lot of great toys when I was in the studio. We did an awful lot of sampling. Remember, Steve, going to that room? There was some room in the studio. What was the studio called? And we recorded all that noise stuff. Yeah, Moody.
In Acton.
Yeah. And there was a big room we found that was really.
Moody was a rehearsal studio, wasn't it? Acton was.
God, we only spent 6 months there.
Yeah, it'll come later.
But there was a big room where we did all this sampling, so there was a lot of sampling that we had to bring to the album. So we found, I had to go out and find a new bit of gear that would like replace the Hammond, and I never really did it. But that's when we got the Corgi, the Trinity, and then the Jupiter 4, and the whole live setup changed because our sound had changed. Actually, a lot of that traditional 5-piece band stuff changed on that album.
Yeah,
there's some just really quickly. I mean, there's some. I've written a few things down here. There's a couple of. If anybody's listening to this and going, I'm not sure if I can distinguish what a Leslie and a Hammond sound like together, apart from the Electrasy's early stuff. I mean, Let It Be by the Beatles, Hammond and Leslie.
Yeah.
White Shade of Pale. That's a Hammond and Leslie combo.
Oh, yeah, that's a
Beauty.
Yeah,
Deep Purple, Child in Time.
Yeah.
And then Led Zeppelin, No
Deep
Quarter.
Everything.
Led Zeppelin, No Quarter is also a Hammond and Leslie combo. Boom.
Yeah.
Mad distinctive.
Yeah. But John Law did the thing that Steve and I were doing. Like he was very much a rhythm Hammond player in Deep Purple, and he didn't use a Leslie for most of their stuff. He used straight PR40 cabs that were distorted.
Okay.
Right, listen to a track. Go and listen to a track called "The Mule" by Deep Purple. You'll go, shit, there's no way that's Deep Purple, because it's like Ian Pace, who I think is one of the best drummers of all time, and I would put Paul alongside Ian Pace in terms of just his sheer musicality and ability to play in time. And the Mule has just got like an incredible Hammond part on it as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Brilliant
It's very
sound.
different. Sorry.
You can link to that,
Anyway.
Pete, can't you?
Yeah.
You do a link to that for the
Well, I was a
podcast?
massive Deep Purple fan, a massive.
What was the place?
Yes. What
was the place in London we'd gone to, Jim? Where it just popped in my head then. I just visualised myself there. You'd taken your Hammond or something there to get repaired. Was it called Hammond in Hammond Street or something?
It would have to be, wouldn't it?
Drummond?
Yeah. No, it was Organ Lane. Organ Passage.
No, there was a place, and it was.
There's a guy called. I've forgotten his name. He's like a legendary guy, and he made me that pedal for the Leslie as well. So we could plug guitars into it.
Because I can remember going in, and there
you
was
recorded some guitar. You recorded some guitar through that, Leslie, as well. I'm pretty sure, or you played with it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
And but there was a Mellotron in that place as well, and he had it apart, like to repair it and stuff. It was like
with all the tape.
Yeah, and it was just like vintage keyboards and Hammonds and stuff just scattered around like in pieces, like probably for spares and stuff. And it was like, God, what a place that was! I'm sure it was in Hammond.
Just on that point about getting, stuff repaired, like guitarists can stomp on pedals if something goes wrong. Keyboard players, you have a lot more delicate and temperamental kit. Did you ever have any absolute shockers live with the band?
I'm sure Steve, we were soldering at one point on some gig. There was something. Oh, you never knew. It was always like, I hope the Hammond's going to work.
Really?
I think we all had that.
Yeah.
I still have that now.
Yeah. I don't have that now because if and when, hopefully, touch wood, in 26, I can get over there and do some shows. It'll all be done with a Mac and a USB keyboard.
It's lost something though, Jim. I was talking to
I know.
I keep talking to Nigel about this as well, and everything's so software driven now.
I'm going back the other way.
It's like, I need something physical. Software driven music's not the same.
I find myself going more analog.
And the problem is you can't play like I was whinging to the guys on because it's become a thing I've noticed. We've gone back to the Hammond and piano stuff more, and I think maybe is that my whingy music? Yeah, come on, Steve, give me some Jim's whingy music. And I think it's because Nigel's developed a sound now with a lot of the sequencing stuff that he's doing, and I think it's a question of getting back to the basics. But I can't play a Mac. I can't play a Mac. Do you know what I mean? I would still need the drawbars, and because you pull out these fistful of things to make sound. It's a physical thing, but we did do it. We did do it without the big gear.
It's so good. What I find amazing is that it was then just kind of like adopted by all the rock bands. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, because they would have gone over, like, you imagine the Stones going over to the US, right? And well, it was it's like, I love that, the Let It Be movie when what's his name? The keyboard player that came in and recorded with the Beatles comes in. Who was it? God, come on, guys! Too early in the morning.
Well, that's a challenge.
Such a. I mean, he's the guy. There's a brilliant footage of him coming in, and they're wheeling in an organ for him, a bit like and they were going, "All right, what's this then? All right, what's this going to sound like?" And he sits down.
Billy Preston.
Billy Preston. That's it. Yeah. So Billy Preston walks in, and but they all come from that gospel stroke jazz stroke background, and most of the guys like Don Airey, Rick Wakeman, and stuff, they came from the jazz clubs in Soho. I was a jazzer, like that. That's what I'm saying. It was like my first gigs were in working men's clubs in Wales when I was 13, and this was like you walked into a club and every club had an organ, and 9 times out of 10 it would have been out. There was no karaoke back then, and they'd sit there and they'd go, all right, boys. I'd sit there and I go, they got little Jimmy Hayden who's come up from, Pembrokeshire now. He's right. So if anyone's got a song, come up and sing now. So I'd sit there and some guy would come and go, I want to sing the Green Green Grass of Home in the key of F. And I'd start playing the Green Green Grass of Home in the key of F. And he wasn't in the key of F. He was in the key of fuck knows what. And I'd have to sit there and go, oh shit. And that's where my chops came from. And most of us as keyboard players at that time were all doing the same thing.
Amazing.
You could speak to Don Airy, Rick Wakeman, and Charlie Watts as well. He was a clubber.
Yeah.
That was the scene. That was how guys were earning their money alongside developing this thing called rock and roll. And then you got this crossover, which was like, that's why I love it. That's why I love Electrasy, because I can draw on that musically and still get an awful lot of self-satisfaction from being a musician, tribute to great songs.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good.
My dear old
It's a good
departed
thing.
gran played the keyboard in the cinema.
Yeah.
Yep. She was.
We've got one here. We've got one here.
She was.
Yeah. Go on.
What in Yeovil?
Gillingham. Yeah, she used to play the keyboard to the silent movies at the cinema in Gillingham.
Yeah.
There you go. And what was nuts about
What
it
year
is
would
when
that have been?
we got her a kind of like, plastic Casio thing when she was, I don't know, 85. Stuck it in her front room. She hadn't played for 50 years, and then she just went for it. And it was like she'd never been away from it.
That'll be me.
It was amazing.
That'll be me in 20 years time.
What's your Jim? What's your favourite ever piano keyboard Hammond solo that you've played on an electric track and somebody else's?
Solo.
Yeah, what's the favourite bit of Hammond or favourite bit of keyboard playing you've ever done for the band?
Done with Electrasy for band. Well, I probably go back. I can't get away from the early set before we recorded Beautiful Insane, because there was something very organic then. Like the energy was coming organically, and it was looser, and there were a lot of jamming moments. So Today's the Day was incredible live.
Right. Yeah, I remember.
Like, just incredible. I'm so envious that I couldn't see us when we were actually playing. Like, I'm envious of you, Pete. And Sim, you probably met Sim, but she was at every gig, and she still goes, it was the best live band experience she's ever been to. So there was just something that I used to get lost. So it would be a show, I get lost in a whole show. I quite liked Today's the Day live because that was just triumphant. But yeah, Angel was always a beautiful one because I just enjoyed that moment. We'd have a moment and Ali singing that was always beautiful. That was a moment to breathe and look out and get people's reaction.
Well, I mean, that's really, and that song's really only Ali, a guitar, and a keyboard, right? It's like,
yeah, really, yeah. So simple, yeah. Other people's keyboard parts. Oh, I don't know. There's too many. I think I said to you the other day, I love, there's a track on the album Fragile by Yes called Roundabout. And one of my trademarks with the band has been the Hammond glissando, because that's why I like Today's the Day, because you just massive. Do you remember, Steve?
If you listen to the keys,
if you listen to Roundabout, it's a really quirky 70s prog rock thing, but then it just breaks down to the most stonking. I'm going to use that word deliberately, stonking, because we brought it back into fashion. The word stonking, but it's a stonking organ solo from Rick Wakeman where it's just got massive rock, and he just shreds the shit out of this Hammond, and it cuts. The sound cuts. So that's one of my favorite Hammond solos, I think. One of my favourite moments, though, was actually after leaving the band.
That was his favourite moment, Steve.
Which is no, it wasn't. No, far from it. After sort of figuring out what I'm going to do, I landed a gig touring with Fish from Marillion.
Okay.
And that was a proper tour. That's we toured in a minivan. This was a proper tour with a bus, with a bed on the bus and everything. And it was just like, you'd wake up in a different country every day. If you hadn't missed the bus, and there's a story, I nearly missed the bus in Denmark one night. But we were in Italy, and I was in the room, and I was just a sideman, really. And this guy comes up, he goes, "Hey, excuse me, you're Jim Hayden from Electrasy." I went, "Yeah." He goes, "Can you teach me the piano song from 1.5 to go?" It's like, for me, that was like, yeah, that was a huge moment for me. I was just like, yeah, someone's actually left a mark, and somebody wants to play that music, that bit of music that they've heard.
Amazing.
Because
Was
we
he
all do that,
German?
don't we?
Was he
No,
German?
he's Italian. That was the
Was he?
worst
Sorry, I
Italian
didn't get your
accent. Yeah.
accent.
No, it's all terrible.
There's a whole bunch of tracks. So there's another keyboard player that I've always admired, right? And you can go and listen to any song that he's on, and you just go like so distinctive. And it's a guy called, and I've got to pronounce his name right, Rami Jaffe. You know Rami Jaffe? So
No, I
That's what
probably
you
know
do
his
with
music,
Jaffa
right?
cake.
You're
yeah,
going,
no, well, so
You get like
yeah.
5 Jaffa cakes.
Rami Jaffe was a founding member of the Wallflowers with Jacob Dylan, Bob Dylan's son. Right?
Right.
And so
right,
the
right,
Wallflowers,
right, yeah.
such amazing like Hammond sound. He's now gone on since 2017, and he's the keyboard player in the Foo Fighters.
Oh, yeah, right.
So the Foos kind of
Yeah.
later on in their career went, you know what we're missing? Keyboard. And they put it in late, and their sound kind of changed, and it's been really quite a bizarre upgrade to the Foo Fighters, but you just don't expect it, and it just kind of works. Yeah, Rami Jaffe, brilliant.
Okay.
Supergrass
Oh, I
kind
don't
of
know.
did that. Actually, there were always keys in Supergrass early on.
Yeah.
It's just they
Well, they
became
did a
more
lot of piano
prominent.
stuff.
More
They're
prominent.
playing over
which
here
is
soon.
good.
I might have to go and see them. They're
Oh
playing at the
yeah,
Opera House.
yeah. I'm seeing
That's
them
every episode in the last couple of
Swansea
weeks.
Bay.
Supergrass keep coming up. It's like the unofficial
Swansea Bay.
Supergrass podcast. But
Looking forward to it.
like there's I've got a couple more questions. Where do you sit on the kind of synths and keyboards, like electronic music versus piano, organ? Are they different disciplines, or do they converge? What's the deal?
Yeah. Well, we did both. So, yeah, we did both because for me, I mean, I love lippy synths. It's like, and that actually came because we didn't have one. So the band, we didn't have one when we started out. And again, when we got time in the studio, that's when I'd be sitting there. Everyone else had gone. I'd be there at 3 o'clock in the morning. I think Strawberry Sunrise happened about 3 o'clock in the morning because Chris and I were just sitting in the control room, just keeping ourselves amused somehow. And I was playing around with. They had this Jupiter 4 there, and I was playing around with the arpeggiator on it and the sequencer on it. And then I'd always liked playing with sounds, because part of being an organ player, particularly, is discovering sounds, because your organ was about making the sounds of everybody. I've got a thing here that sounds like an orchestra. I can sit down and play a full orchestral piece on it. Playing around with synths was something that I always enjoyed because it was about adding to the sonic dimension. And I love the energy. I remember like the Chemical Brothers came out. Fuck me. I just loved the Chemical Brothers. I loved that energy. And again, it's about for a keyboard player, you're like, no one wants to be, you play the nice piano stuff, but I always wanted to rock out. So when we discovered the Chemical Brothers, I discovered a thing called the Sherman Filter Bank, which I've still got, which is capable of blowing up an entire PA system because it just generates all this sonic, subsonic sound. And we did a lot of stuff with that live. Like I had it linked into Paul Live, so I was doing a lot of Chemical Angel. A lot of that stuff live was being triggered. So it was kind of, that's what I'm saying. I just think
Steve loves
we
Chemical
are a
Angel.
unique band.
It's better live than, because we did that
Yeah, it was
recording
a
at
different
London
thing.
Radio,
Yeah,
GWR, I think it was.
But I think
And,
that
I mean, a lot of the
synth
stuff
that
is-
synth sound like crept in, didn't it? That's the thing about Electrasy. You blended so many different sounds, and the synth sound did kind of creep into lots and lots of stuff as well. It was really clever.
But Paul and I did like Giving It Back. Giving It Back was like Paul and I we sequenced that in the bedroom in that unit that we nearly burnt down, Steve, in the valley that we were living in. Do you remember when we set the fireworks off for New Year's Eve? But we had, because we were on the road, we got the new gear, we got Paul and I had developed a very strong relationship. I mean, I'd known Paul since we were kids, so, he's still, unfortunately, he doesn't play anymore. But even if he did, he'd sit down and Paul and I can actually lock in without even looking at each other because we played so much together before Electrasy. So he and I used to spend a lot of time, once he got the MPC and we learned how to trigger stuff between him and me, we were throwing stuff together that was just all about developing that wall of sound. It was like our wall of sound. Alex mentioned it, like the back line, Alex, me and Paul, was just such an incredibly tight sound that synth stuff became more than just flippy stuff over the top. It was like the energy of the band live. So I love it. You know,
Well,
I mean,
it was also like when that was going through a PA, and it was like with our sound engineer, he would absolutely get it blaring out of the PA
sitting.
because it was
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
thing of what are the audience feeling.
Yeah.
You know, it
yeah.
wasn't all about just guitars playing. It was
Well, there was that. I mean,
what
there
is
was that.
the feeling of the live event.
I think the 80s kind of paved the way forward into the 90s for the keyboards and the synths to start becoming part of music. I mean, if you look at like Bernard Sumner and New Order, what was New Order like?
Yeah,
He's a
yeah, yeah. They just
phenomenal.
played out here actually. Yeah,
Pet
and
Shop
people have just
Boys.
gone nuts.
Pet Shop Boys is another one.
Yeah,
Chris Lowe
yeah,
was just the most phenomenal
yeah,
player if you think about it.
yeah,
And then on the other
yeah.
end of the spectrum, you got
I think,
Brian Eno's like knocking out tunes for fun.
yeah, I think a lot of I don't know. I think yeah. I'm not a piano player. I've never called myself a piano player, and I've actually never called myself an organist. I mean, I think I've got a unique ability on the Hammond. I think I would put myself up there as somebody that could, you know, pick up from somebody like Don Airy, and I did swap with Don Airy on gigs in the past. But I think keyboard players are like, they've always had, the great keyboarders have just had the symphonic mind, and it's about discovering sound. But, you know, that's why Steve's the guitarist in that vein. Steve, like, I'm gonna pump up your tires now, right? Like, you've never looked at yourself as a Steve Vai, you know, because you're a soul man, and so your role has always been about discovering sound and texture as well. And I just think that was something that's there with us. That's what we do. You know,
Yeah.
I've always valued that relationship. I learnt a lot from Steve joining Electrasy because that's what we do. That's like
how
we've
to handle a
always
mistake.
evolved. Yeah. I had to like, phew, that wasn't me. That was the keyboard player.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
There's
but
no
I am a keyboard.
I'm throwing in a complete curveball here, right? We're gonna finish quick fire. Steve, feel free to join in.
Brilliant.
I'm gonna throw the name of 2 keyboard players at you, and you have to pick the best one.
What?
And you can't split the difference. You have to pick one.
Mm.
Probably one of
Right, here we go. Rick Wakeman or Ray Manzarek.
I only know Rick Wakeman, so
Steve.
it's going to be Rick.
That's really hard. That's not fair. I'd have to probably lean on Rick Wakeman, but that's
Steve
like,
Atkins just said,
Who's the other
who's
guy?
Ray Manzarek? Well, the keyboard player in the Doors.
Doors, buddy. Doors.
Was he? Right.
No, Steve.
Yeah.
Fair
Okay,
enough.
ready? John Lord
Wow.
or Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran?
Who's Duran Duran?
John Lord.
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
Brian Eno or Jean-Michel Jarre?
Ooh. I'd have to be Eno.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don Airy or Jim Hayden?
Hayden.
Don Hayden.
Don Hayden. Yeah. Oh no, Don's an old friend. I can't do that to him. Yeah, Jim Hayden.
All right, I'm going to do one more. Let's go, looking down my list here. Chris Lowe from the Pet Shop Boys. Slightly different, I know, because he's a synth guy. Or Bernard Sumner.
Bernard Sumner from
New Order.
Of course.
Pet Shop Boys.
Yeah, I think the Pet Shop
Yeah.
Boys. The other one that I found
Yeah.
out as well about is a big keyboard player, Trent Reznor.
Oh yeah.
9 Inch Nails.
Go
The
on.
Chaz and Dave
Who's
guy.
playing
Okay, which one is he?
piano
Chaz or Dave?
Chaz
Well,
or
they
Dave?
both. Yeah, Chaz. That's Dave, isn't it?
Was it
Dave.
Dave? He's a player.
Good job. Yeah, but yeah.
There you go.
He's a
Good old
player.
British pub sing along stuff. I see.
Well, listen,
Back in the
Brilliant.
days when
we're gonna
people would still
wrap
sing.
up in the interest of time. We're gonna wrap up. What I want everybody to do, once they've listened to this chat, is go and listen to the Calling All the Dreamers Mark 1 album by Electrasy, because that for me has got all like the raw keys on. Like before the kind of like mucking around with it and stuff on Beautiful Insane. Then listen to Beautiful Insane. Right, Jim, lovely to see you, mate.
Well, yeah, well, I am sad.
I know you are. You're all the way in Sydney. Well, listen, Jim.
I know it's been 30 years, and I know I probably know we're not ever talking to you again, but I enjoy
Jim, have a cracking day, my friend.
it.
All right. Cheers, chaps. Bye.
You Wally.